July 27th, 2007. To most people, it's just a date. A small fraction of a second compared to the thousands of years mankind has lived. But to Simpsons fans, that is a day that will live in infamy forever. On that day, a line was drawn and then colored in yellow. On that day, the Simpsons movie was released. After years of waiting and waiting, we all got to see our favorite family on the big screen in the self proclaimed greatest family adventure of all time. But before we talk about the movie we got, I think it's important to take a step back and talk about the long and arduous road that it took to get the movie made in the first place. When it comes to long lasting and beloved animated TV shows, most of them eventually get a movie. Rugrats, SpongeBob, Bob's Burgers, and countless others all eventually got the big screen treatment. It's just standard practice at this point to take a cartoon, bump up the animation quality a bit, add some big stakes, and throw it onto the silver screen. But I don't think any other movie based on a television show went through what The Simpsons movie went through. The show had just wrapped up its 18th season with the 400th episode, You Can't Always Say What You Want, airing in May of 2007, 2 months before the movie. 400 episodes had aired before the movie came out. But talk of a Simpsons movie dates back to at least May of 1991. In an Entertainment Weekly article titled It's a Cash Cow, Man, which was published on May 10th of that year, in terms of a movie, Simpsons creator Matt Groening was quoted as saying, "We've talked about it. I'm sure it will happen, but there's no story yet. We planned so much story into 1/2 hour that it's hard to figure out how to take advantage of the movie medium." 1991 was very early in the show's run. For starters, when that article was published, the show was just about done airing its second season, with the penultimate episode, 3 Men and a Comic Book, having aired the day before on May 9th. This was only the 34th episode overall, and they had already been talking about doing a movie at this point. After the completion of the season 4 premiere Camp Krusty, a fan favorite episode in which Bart and Lisa go to a summer camp ran by Krusty the Clown, only to find that it's not all the great fun it was made out to be, executive producer James L. Brooks reportedly called the writers and told them that this story could be used for the movie. However, the episode ran very short, and the writers could barely get 18 minutes out of it, which forced them to add extra verses to the Camp Krusty song to extend the runtime. In addition, the episode was also selected to be the season premiere, which further complicated the issue. Showrunner for the season, Al Jean, was reported as telling Brooks, "First of all, if we make it into the movie, then we don't have a premiere, and second, if we can't make 18 minutes out of this episode, how are we supposed to make 80? After Camp Krusty, various ideas were tossed around over the years. It's no secret that for a long time Matt Groening wanted to make Semptasia, a full-length parody of Disney's Fantasia with various segments set to music. But with it being a mostly silent film, there came the issue. It was simply too difficult to write a script for because it would be mostly nothing but stage directions. Groening discusses the idea in the commentary for the season 4 episode A Streetcar Named Marge and admits that it would get no laughs at the table, though showrunner Al Jean agrees with him that it would be great. Another idea was to do a Treehouse of Horror anthology film, though this idea never made it past a general idea and was never pursued as a serious contender for the film. Another idea that was tossed around was a live-action Troy McClure movie. As I covered in a video last year, this movie would have starred frequent Simpsons guest star and Saturday Night Live alumni Phil Hartman as his reoccurring character Troy McClure. However, following Phil's death in 1998, any plans for the project were cancelled. Though Matt Groening has been quoted as saying that the idea never made it past general enthusiasm. Cut to 2001, which is when the voice actors of the series officially signed on to do the movie. This is also when a team was put together to work on the film. One major concern and issue the producers had was that making the film could cause a negative effect on the series, and there just weren't enough crew members to work on the series as well as a feature film at the same time. But as the series went on, more animators and writers were hired so that the movie and show could go on at the same time. For the movie, an all-star staff would be needed. With Groening and Brooks producing, they brought back showrunners Mike Scully and Al Jean, who continued as showrunner on the series while the movie was in production, to produce the film as well. From there, they hired series director David Silverman to direct the film. Having been there since the beginning, and being credited for creating most of the rules that come to drawing and animating The Simpsons, he seemed like the obvious choice to direct. But this all-star team wasn't complete just yet. If you want to make a good movie, then you need a few good writers. Or, more accurately, 11 writers. Former showrunners and writers from throughout the history of the show were called in to help write the movie. Seasons 5 and 6 executive producer and showrunner David Merkin, original writing staff member and co-showrunner of seasons 3 and 4 Mike Reiss, writer and producer George Meyer, writer John Vitti, and writer and total recluse John Swartzwelder. Eventually, writer and co-executive producer Ian Maxtone Graham and writer and executive producer Matt Selman would also join the team. Groening, Brooks, Jean, and Scully would write parts of the script as well. It was an all-star team sizable to the superstar patch softball team Mr. Burns once put together all the way back in the season 3 episode Homer at the Bat. But unlike that team, this one needed to succeed in every way possible. Writing a movie for one of the most beloved shows of all time wasn't going to be an easy task. Early on, the producers made a deal with Fox. And by a deal, I mean what was essentially a failsafe. At any point during production, if the script wasn't working out or if they just couldn't find a suitable story, they were allowed to abandon production on the project entirely with no consequences. In late 2003, development had officially started on the script, although some work on it had initially been done back in 2001. The crew spent 6 months discussing and laying out a plot. On day one, Mike Scully pitched a story where Steven Spielberg would come to Springfield to film a movie with Tom Hanks, and for some reason would have to blow up the town. That same initial session, Matt Groening shared that he had recently read an article in the news about pig waste management in a town that had to dispose of pig crap in their water supply, and proposed the idea of Homer adopting a pet pig, but having nowhere to dispose of the pig's waste. The producers loved this idea and latched onto it. Other ideas tossed around were a Truman Show-like pitch, where the Simpsons find out their lives are a TV show, but this was shot down by Groening himself, who insisted that the characters should never know they're in a show. Although this idea would later be used in the 2007 video game, The Simpsons Game. Al Jean made a suggestion that the plot could involve the family rescuing manatees, but this idea would later be used for the season 17 episode Bonfire of the Manatees instead. Circling back to Groening's idea, the crew liked the pig crap in the water supply angle, and it would end up inspiring the plot. One plot point that was also pitched early on was the role that Ned Flanders had, as a sort of father figure to Bart, as Al Jean wanted to see Bart wonder what his life would be like if Flanders was his father instead of Homer. So they had 2 massive plot points settled early on. But every good story needs a villain, right? In terms of the villain, the team originally wanted to bring back classic fan favorite Hank Scorpio from the season 8 episode You Only Move Twice, which featured the Simpsons moving to a new town and Homer getting a new job with a boss he really likes, Hank Scorpio. It turns out that Scorpio is a bit of a supervillain, but Homer is oblivious to this, even helping him kill James Bond at one point. The episode ends with the family moving back to Springfield, and we never see Hank Scorpio again. According to the director's commentary for the film, it was actually Albert Brooks, frequent guest star and Hank's voice actor, who suggested that maybe bringing Hank back wasn't such a good idea. This led the staff to creating a new character instead, Russ Cargill, head of the Environmental Protection Agency. With the basic outline of the story decided, the writers separated it into 7 sections. Jean, Scully, Swartzwelder, Meyer, Merkin, Reiss, and Vitti each wrote 25 pages, and would all meet as a group about a month later to merge the sections into what was described as a very rough draft. This would be the first draft of many. The script was written very much like how the show was written. The writers would sit around a table, pitch ideas, and make each other laugh. With well over 100 script rewrites taking place, it's obvious that not everything was going to make the final cut of the movie. Now, it's been almost 15 years since the film's release at the time I am writing this, and we still don't know a good majority of the ideas that were scrapped from these drafts. So while I'm trying to be as thorough as possible with this video, I want to stress that it's possible that I might miss something. This is a massive topic after all, and even after sifting through dozens upon dozens of interviews and audio commentaries, there is likely more out there about this movie that we just don't know. As some of the writers have stated over the years, there were jokes and moments that made them laugh consistently and constantly, but after the 250th or 350th time hearing them, didn't make them laugh anymore. If a joke didn't make them laugh after a certain point, it was cut, which resulted in few jokes from the original screenplay making it to the final film. For starters, the film was originally a musical. Partly inspired by South Park's turn at the big screen back in 1999, as that movie was a full-on Disney-style musical, this would have included a song about Alaska, as well as a song where Lisa's love interest, Colin, would sing about the tipping point of pollution in Lake Springfield. However, in an interview with UK magazine Time Out in 2007, Matt Groening was quoted as saying, "At one point the movie was supposed to be a musical, but we kept interrupting the songs to stop people from getting bored. Then the songs got shorter and shorter, and in the end we just said, let's not do it." There was allegedly enough cut from the script to make 2 whole movies, with Matt Groening saying on the season 19 commentary for Funeral for a Fiend, 7 great movies got cut from that script. To really put that in perspective, I'm going to run through every scrapped, changed, or deleted scene that we currently know about. And to make this slightly less complicated, I'm going to run through scrapped or changed characters, then deleted scenes and plot points. Probably the biggest character change to talk about is that of the antagonist, Russ Cargill. Portrayed in the film as the dapper-dressed, smooth-talking head of the EPA, the character was originally older and a bit dorkier, with a voice reminiscent of Donald Rumsfeld. However, voice actor Albert Brooks had a hard time getting anything out of this version of the character, and after a line recording, reportedly asked, "Well, is that what you wanted?" And after a test screening in Matt Groening's hometown of Portland, Oregon, the test audience just simply found the character depressing. So the character was changed, and Brooks was then better able to find the character and his mannerisms from there. However, the character's design was changed so late into production that promotional materials had already gone out, which resulted in a Burger King toy of the original version of Russ Cargill that says a line in the original Donald Rumsfeld-esque voice. So if you got a grumpy old man in your Burger King kids meal as a kid, this is why.
All eyes on me.
One character scrapped from the film, who actually appeared in a TV Guide article listing off deleted scenes, was a Woodsy the Owl type mascot character. We know of at least 2 scenes that this character was supposed to be in. The first scene has the original version of Russ Cargill taking the mutant squirrel to a local park ranger, where the squirrel attacks another park ranger who is dressed in the Woodsy the Owl mascot costume. Aside from the one image shown off in TV Guide, we've never seen any more of this scene. However, the scene was fully animated and made it to a test screening, but was absent at the next test screening. In the same TV Guide article, James L. Brooks mentions that they loved the Woodsy Owl character and that he was originally supposed to be Tom Hanks' sidekick in the PSA scene. Also, according to the DVD commentary, it's briefly mentioned that Burger King also made Woodsy Owl toys for the movie, but this has never been confirmed to be true otherwise, and I feel if it was, said toys would have leaked out by now, so I'm not entirely sure if this one is true.
Well, we also drove Burger King crazy because they had made 150,000 of the other character.
Oh, did they?
They did. They actually have of the other
Woodsy,
of the other
didn't
design.
they make Woodsy too? That
I think they did, yes.
Oh my
Yeah.
God.
Speaking of the Burger King set, if you look at the Marge and Nelson toys from the set, they both feature a mutated raccoon. This is from an original version of the film where there were more mutant creatures. However, why this was cut is unknown, but it seems to be pretty late into production, seeing as how these toys got made. Kelsey Grammer was set to reprise the ever-popular character of Sideshow Bob at different points throughout the film, but this was scrapped for unknown reasons. Minnie Driver recorded lines for a grief counselor that is lowered into the dome, but her lines and character were ultimately cut. The man who gets crushed by the dome was originally voiced by actor Edward Norton, who did a Woody Allen impression for the character. However, this was seen as too distracting, so Dan Castellaneta took over the role and redubbed the lines. The line, "I never saw Venice," was originally ad-libbed by Norton. Isla Fisher and Aaron Brockovich also had lines cut, but it's unknown if they were playing characters or themselves. And finally, Lisa's love interest Colin was originally named Dexter, then Adrian, before the writers finally settled on Colin. Moving forward to the movie itself, I'm going to break down everything I could find that was cut or changed. And to keep things simple, we'll be going in a chronological order of events. Mostly. I'll be bundling some similar scenes together so that this video is a bit more coherent. In the Itchy and Scratchy cartoons seen in the opening, originally Itchy ran over Scratchy with a lunar rover. And when they finally decided on Scratchy getting shot with rockets, that part with the rockets went through many incarnations. It's also worth noting that the writers had planned an Itchy and Scratchy cartoon to be the opening from the very beginning of production. For a long time, Marge was the one who had the episode in the church instead of Grandpa. But the writers and producers felt that it shifted the tone of the whole film and made it too dark and serious. But shifting it to Grandpa gave them more leeway, so that it wouldn't seem as jarring when the family plays it off and leaves him wrapped up in a rug in the car. Whereas they couldn't really do that with Marge, as it would seem cruel for the family to just play it off as her being crazy. But with Grandpa, it would be funnier and more believable. In addition to the church scene we got in the movie, there was originally more to it. Those who were around at the time might remember a clip in the trailer where Reverend Lovejoy says, "Here's the money shot," but this line was not in the final movie. This line was part of a scene where Lovejoy and Marge ascend a staircase in the church, a la the Da Vinci Code, where he shows her the security footage of Grandpa having his episode, leading him to say, "Here's the money shot." This scene would be replaced by Comic Book Guy's phone recording of the incident in the final film. Although at one point in production, Marge would go to the android's dungeon to see Comic Book Guy, instead of him coming to the Simpsons house. In terms of Lisa's love interest for the film, the writers originally wanted it to be Milhouse, but they found that test audiences weren't as familiar with his long-standing crush on Lisa. So the Milhouse subplot was changed in favor of the Colin subplot. Originally, Nelson's dad joined Nelson in laughing at Bart, but this was later changed to Nelson's mom. Additionally, Nelson was supposed to have been laughing at Bart for hours, and eventually began losing his voice, where he would then ask for a tea with lemon. But it took too long for the joke to play out, so it was cut. One scene that lasted years and years of drafts was the Homer Bug Zapper fishing scene. And I'm kinda glad that scene made it all the way through to the finish line, because that scene is a direct parallel to the Tracy Ullman short, Gone Fishing, where Homer and Bart go fishing. So it's very cool that this scene is in the film to me. Originally, there was a scene in a beauty parlor where Marge is with Patty and Selma, but this was changed to Marge and Lisa talking about Colin when Homer has Spider-Pig on the ceiling. When Marge first finds out about the pig crap silo, she originally had a joke where she would use every euphemism imaginable for the word shit, but this was cut. There was concern about the skull in the lake being scary enough. There was also a cut joke where someone comes up to Homer to see what's going on, and the skull hides behind Homer, whistling nonchalantly. As I briefly mentioned earlier, the creatures originally proliferated, but this was changed. The team also went through various animals before landing on the squirrel. These include a deer and a rabbit. Originally, just after the dome is placed over the town, Mr. Burns would pop up and inform viewers that this was the point of the movie that they could no longer get their money back. During a test screening, this allegedly caused Matt Groening's son to retort, "Oh, you mean you could get your money back? Is that true? That far into a movie? That's when you can't get your money back?" Originally, after the dome is placed over the town, there was going to be a segment on the Channel 6 News called the Springfield Farm Report, where a reporter named Happy McGee informs everyone that there is no more weather, so that all the crops were just dying. This would be replaced in the final film by the Trappuccino News Report. At one point, there was a joke where the dome split the baseball field, and every ball that got hit was a ground rule double. However, you can still see the baseball field split in half when the dome is placed over the town. You can also find this deleted scene on the DVD. In the mob scene, while everyone was saying kill, 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 originally there were dyslexics in the group going lick, lick, lick instead. Why this was removed is unknown. The reason the house catches on fire is because of a scrapped scene where Reverend Lovejoy breaks into the house and torches Maggie's crib. Additionally, when the family is escaping the house, originally Homer got impaled on the barbecue grill as they were trying to escape. In an early draft of the film where Milhouse was the love interest, he would save Lisa's saxophone from the house fire. The scene of Colin saying goodbye to Lisa was originally Flanders saying goodbye to Bart, with Bart mooning Flanders and pressing his butt to the dome, which left a heart shape, with sweet music playing in the background. But people at test screenings thought that it was a little weird, so it was changed. The scene where Cargill is ordering his men to search for the family, aka the Mad Without Power scene, was the first piece of test footage ever done for the film, and for the brief time that Hank Scorpio was considered as the villain, Hank had a line where he would say, "You're giving me that look. I know that look. You think I've gone mad with power." The scene at the hotel where Homer has to convince Marge to trust him was reportedly rewritten more than any other in the film and is touted by the writers as the most important scene in the film. This replaced a scene where Homer throws flaming mummies out of a moving truck at pursuing cops. The mummy truck sequence was originally part of a sequence where the family goes to a museum where there is a King Tut exhibit and Bart would get locked in a sarcophagus, which led him to pounding on the inside and Homer not letting him out, which led Homer to say, "He's gotta get over his fear of coffins." This line was later used on the show in the episode Funeral for a Fiend, when Bart also gets locked in a coffin. Originally, Matt Groening had pitched that the reason they go to Alaska is that Homer wanted to visit Homer, Alaska. But then they ended up with the family kinda winding up in Alaska with no real reasoning behind it. Another reason why the hotel scene was super important and necessary. In terms of the carnival scene, lots of stuff was changed. At one point the family was working there, another point they were auditioning to be clowns, and there was at one point a clown named Scummo that you would dunk in water. He was voiced by Hank Azaria. The scenes and jokes took so long that they were all eventually cut. The reason the motorcycle ball riding scene made it in was because originally, at the end of the film, when Homer and Bart ride around the dome, there was no indication that Homer knew how to ride a motorcycle. So this scene was added in as setup. The carnival and winning the truck replaced chase scenes, helicopters, hiding in the backs of trucks. It was a cleaner and much more effective way for the riders to get the family to Alaska, which had been proving difficult up to that point. Originally, there was an exchange between Chief Wiggum and Apu as they're running from Mr. Burns' hounds, but this was cut because the line just didn't land how the writers would have liked. What this line is unknown, but this particular scene can be seen in the trailers. More scenes were cut out of the Alaska section than any other section in the movie. Various scenes of the family whining, Bart making a prank call to Eskimos where we would see Eskimo. The medicine woman was also in the bar at one point. The deer in the bedroom scene had its white spots on the body removed because it was too close to Bambi. There were originally a bunch of jokes of the citizens of Springfield living life under the dome, but most of these were cut, and a lot of them are simply unknown. However, one scene covered in the TV Guide article that I mentioned earlier describes a deleted scene where Krusty is trying to comfort the kids in his audience after Springfield's power goes out. He does this by holding a flashlight up to his face, which proceeds to scare the crap out of them. Director David Silverman was quoted about the scene as saying, "That was a great scene. In some ways, I wish we had tried that out. We had it in one version, and I thought it would work if we fully animated it. But in the end, the scene just wasn't that essential to the story, so it was cut." The 5 unthinkable options scene went through a few iterations. In one version, Russ Cargill entered the Oval Office with a mystery box and would say something similar to, "The answer to what we're going to do is in here." But this was ultimately replaced with the scene we have now. Julie Kavner, the voice actress of Marge, did well over 150 takes on the wedding video scene, to the point where her voice was starting to give out, and on her way to the studio to record the last take, she was in the middle of a snowstorm. But she ended up getting it on the final take, and it turned out to be one of the best scenes of the movie. They considered cutting the epiphany scene at one point because as the writers were writing the script, they weren't sure exactly why Homer needed an epiphany. They knew he needed to run out the door after Marge, and originally the epiphany was that Homer needed to get his family back. But composer Hans Zimmer told the writers that Homer already knew that was what he needed to do. Speaking of Hans Zimmer, about 2 weeks before they wrapped production on the movie, he delivered an orchestral version of the Spider-Pig song for the soundtrack, something that he had just done for fun and mainly for himself, but as the writers and director heard it, they knew it needed to go in the epiphany scene, because they had been having a hard time striking the right tone with the scene, and it was too scary for some test audiences. So the orchestral version of the Spider-Pig song helped the scene click together. As Homer leaves the medicine woman's hut, originally she had a line similar to the effect of, "Why do they all think I work for free?" But this was cut for unknown reasons. In an early version of the script, Marge and the kids didn't go to Seattle, but instead they went to TV talk show The View, and the writers had written parts for all the cast of The View. Russ Cargill then would have come onto the show with machine guns, and there would have been a fight featuring co-host Joy Behar.
Early on in the script, there was a very lengthy bit where they didn't go to Seattle. They went to The View, and we wrote parts for all the women on The View.
Yeah.
And
Times Square.
Russ Cargill came onto The View with machine guns, and they were like having a fight with Joy Behar.
It was insane.
When you say things like that, I'm so glad I'm blessed with no memory.
After leaving the medicine woman's hut, Homer would have come across a sausage truck. The driver then gives him a ride to just outside of Springfield, and after dropping Homer off, goes to check on the sausages, only to discover that they've all been eaten. Hank Azaria voiced the character, and he sang a song about checking on his sausages. This scene was included on the DVD release. There was a scene with various Springfield residents ransacking the town who decide they want to take down a government building, so they all head towards the DMV and start destroying the inside as Patty and Selma run away in terror. This scene can also be found on the DVD. Springfield originally looked more devastated, but test audiences thought it looked too creepy. So all of the Springfield backgrounds towards the end of the movie were changed very late into production. There was originally a joke explaining how Moe became the Emperor of Springfield, where Moe explains how the town went from a dystopia to a peaceful utopia to an autopia where everyone rode around in little cars, like the Disneyland ride of the same name. This scene didn't do well at test screenings, so it was cut, but it can be found on the DVD release. It was originally Lenny distracting Cargill and not Cletus. He would have distracted Cargill by telling him that he had something on his face. But it went on too long, so it was shortened and changed to Cletus. The movie's crew had a big debate about what the final time on the bomb should be. Originally, after Homer kicks the bomb and the remaining time goes down, Barney and Nelson, along with the other citizens of Springfield, would have sang a song about how Springfield doesn't really have an anthem, but they were going to sing one anyway. This made it very late into production and lasted at least until March of 2007, just a few months before the movie was released. This song can be found on the DVD, and it is also featured in the end credits of the film. Originally, instead of the glass cracks of the dome following Homer and Bart, it was the bomb following them instead. But it was felt that this wouldn't make much sense. The original pitch was, instead of Maggie defeating Cargill, it was President Schwarzenegger, who would have hit Cargill with a tree branch and say the line, "Welcome to the executive branch." Grandpa originally had a line praising Homer after the dome explodes. I never thought I'd be happy to say this, but my son. But it was cut. Originally, at one point during the movie, Mr. Burns' mansion was going to be looted, but it was cut because it just didn't test well. But a payoff to that cutscene is in the credits. Additionally, fan favorites Kang and Kodos were originally meant to appear during the end credits. In his 2018 biography, Springfield Confidential, Jokes, secrets, and outright lies from a lifetime writing for The Simpsons, writer Mike Reiss notes that Kang and Kodos had a small role during the end credits of test screenings of the film. According to Reiss, the aliens discussed the quality of the film and also discussed Spider-Pig, with Kang saying, "At least the pig was cute," prompting Kodos to shoot back with, "Yeah, until he vanished halfway through the picture." Reiss explains that test audiences hated it, so the whole scene was cut. To this date, nothing from this scene has ever been released. So, in terms of the movie, that's gonna just about do it, guys. However, so much went on behind the scenes of the film that there's just no telling what else was left on the cutting room floor. And it's possible we might never know. With the movie finally finished and almost ready to show to millions of Simpsons fans around the world, the marketing and promotion for the movie was ramping up, and it was everywhere. As mentioned earlier, Burger King had to set up toys featuring the characters, with other countries such as Europe getting the same set, but with all the characters in gold instead. Burger King even had a website called SimpsonizedMe.com, where users could turn themselves into a Simpsons character. In what is probably the greatest marketing stunt ever, 7-Eleven took some of its stores and transformed them into Quickie Marts for the summer of 2007. The stores sold Simpsons movie-themed cups, straws, and other goodies, as well as in-universe Simpsons items such as Squishies, Krusty O's, Buzz Cola, and even an exclusive issue of Radioactive Man. Issue number 711, of course. The stores also featured cutouts of the characters, with employees even dressed in Quickie Mart uniforms. It was a truly amazing feat that 7-Eleven was able to pull off. Movie theaters also got in on the promotional side, with many theaters installing a display of the Simpsons living room and couch with statues of each family member, complete with a spot for moviegoers to sit down right next to our favorite family. As for the movie premiere itself, even that was a big deal. Fox held a contest between 13 different states to find the Springfield with the most Simpsons spirit. Each state submitted a 3 to 5 minute video showing why their Springfield was the best. The winning Springfield would get to host the premiere of the movie. The winner in true Springfield was Springfield, Vermont. On July 21st, 2007, the town rolled out the yellow carpet for Matt Groening and the rest of the Simpsons crew, and Groening was even given a key to the city. But the remaining 13 other Springfields didn't leave empty-handed. Each town was given a screening of the movie the night before the film released worldwide. Not a bad consolation prize, all things considered. After all of the hard work and the long journey it took to get to this point, the film finally premiered on July 27th. The film was a critical and financial success, grossing $536.4 million on a budget of only $75 million. Such a big return would surely help a sequel get made quicker, right? Well, before we fully wrap things up, I want to touch upon the Simpsons movie sequel that has been talked about at various points over the preceding years. In an interview with The Hollywood Reporter in 2014, James L. Brooks said that Fox had approached the team and requested a second film, adding, "We've been asked to develop it, but we haven't. We're doing a lot of other stuff." In December of 2014, just before the January 2015 premiere of the season 26 episode The Man Who Came to Be Dinner, Al Jean posted on his Twitter that the episode had been seriously considered as the second movie, with David Merkin adding later that that is why the episode was delayed from season 24 to season 26. However, being that the episode centers on the family meeting Kang and Kodos for the first time outside of a Treehouse of Horror episode, there was a fear of the film being non-canon in regards to the series itself, and they wanted to avoid the trope of overcoming the events of it with a memory wipe. In July of 2017, Al Jean and David Silverman said that the sequel was early on in development and reiterated the toll that the production of the first movie took on the staff. On August 10th, 2018, it was officially reported that a sequel was finally in development. However, on July 22nd, 2019, Groening stated that he had no doubts that Disney would one day order a sequel, implying that it wasn't happening currently. And in July of 2021, Al Jean admitted that due to the ongoing pandemic, discussions for the film had stalled. At the Simpsons panel at San Diego Comic-Con 2022, Matt Selman was reported as saying, "These movies are not fun. The show is fun. Movies are hard. The show is also hard, But a movie requires a level of audience engagement in stakes, emotion, character, comedy. It is so relentless. It kind of stops becoming the kind of fun, silly thing that The Simpsons is. Not that we didn't do it once and we can't do it again. It's just a whole other kettle of fish. So based on that alone, it definitely doesn't look like we'll be seeing a movie anytime soon. But maybe one day. So, who knows? Maybe we'll see our favorite family grace the big screen once again someday. Crazier things have happened. After all, it took nearly 2 decades the first time around. It's bound to happen at some point. I hope you all enjoyed this look at the Simpsons movie 15 years later. I've been Seeker of the Lost, and I hope you all have a great day.